afternoon and thanks for joining us for the sitting of the lower house. I'm Simone Absalom. The session will start with prayers followed by a roll call of those in attendance. This is usually followed by statements by ministers, questions and answers to questions, items on the government business and private members' motions. On the agenda today, the sectoral debate continues. During these debates, cabinet ministers and junior ministers are expected to record their performance and their projections since the previous year, while opposition spokespersons on the various portfolios will seek answers and criticize or support government's programs and policies. Several members of parliament are down to make their presentations during the sectoral debate today. These include Dr. Andrew Wheatley, Mr. Peter Bunting, Member of Parliament Natalie Nita Headley, and Marlene Malahoo Fort. If you are planning to attend the session at Gordon House, here are some rules you need to keep in mind. If you are planning to attend the session at Gordon House, here are some rules you need to keep in mind. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the House. No visitor shall be admitted to the House without first obtaining an admission card from the office of the clerk. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the House during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed unless so authorized by the presiding officer. And there should be no smoking inside the parliamentary building. Now over to the proceedings.
Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Spencer, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Green, Mr. Ascot, Mr. Azan, Dr. Bloomfield, Mr. Brown, Mr. Buchanan, here. Mr. Bunting, here. Dr. Campbell, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell, here. Mr. Clark, here. Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, here. Ms. Daly, Mr. Daly, Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert, Dr. Davies, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Ferguson, Dr. Green, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Hales, Mrs. Holness, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kellier, Mr. Main, Dr. McNeil, Ms. Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Michael Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Redmond, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mrs. Simpson-Miller, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Terrelong, Reverend Thwaites, Mr. Dwayne Baz, Mr. Wright.
Statements by ministers. Announcement.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following. Minister Papers, numbers 26 to 39, outlining performance for financial year 2016-2017 and priority focus for 2017-2018 for the undermentioned agencies falling under the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. And these are International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences, National Commission on Science and Technology, Scientific Research Council, Board of Examiners, National Energy Solutions Limited, formerly Rural Electrification Program Limited, Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica, Petrojam Limited, Petrojam Ethanol Limited, Wigton Wind Farm, eGov Jamaica Limited, eLearning Jamaica Company Limited, Post and Telecommunications Department, Spectrum Management Authority, Universal Service Fund. Report of the 8th Independent Commission for the Judiciary. and annual report of the Rural Water Supply Limited for the year 2014-2015.
Members, I wish to recognize and welcome a number of visitors in our gallery today. Among them, a number of students from the Bishop Gibson High School. We welcome you and hope that you enjoy our sitting today. Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sittings of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained, public business.
Mr. Speaker, we'll continue the sectoral debate today. Before that, we'll continue the debate on the Plea Negotiation Agreement Act 2017, and the Member of Parliament for Southern Trelawney will make her contribution. It doesn't matter, leave her alone.
Mrs. Darwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the objective of this Act, the Plea Negotiations and Agreements Act 2017, is to make new provisions for a system of plea negotiations and plea agreements in the criminal jurisdiction of our courts. This was necessary, Mr. Speaker, as it was felt that the existing law in the form of the Criminal Justice Plea Negotiations and Agreement Act was underutilized, and therefore the Parliament identified a working group, and it was established to identify the problems with the Act and to make recommendations for changes to the statutory framework so that the legislation can achieve its objectives. Under this new bill, Mr. Speaker, the definition of prosecutor has been widened. Provisions have been made for the prosecution to participate in the sentencing process, post-sentence plea negotiations, reduction of penalties or sentences to be imposed by the judges, as well as the sealing of the records of plea negotiations and agreements by our courts. Mr. Speaker, I rise with other colleagues to support the passage of this bill into law for a number of reasons. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, as we are all aware, the workload in our criminal courts has exponentially increased with increases in crime and violence in our beloved country. This has led to a vast number of cases being prosecuted in our courts. There is a bad backlog of cases given that there are simply not just enough judges or courtrooms available to address the cases. And this bill will now provide a transparent avenue to assist with the backlog of criminal cases. Mr. Speaker, the bill also provides an environment in which persons who are guilty can plead guilty and it gives them the opportunity to be aware of the likely sentence or the range of sentences that will be imposed on them. They can also be assured, given the current legislative regime of sentence indications and reduction of sentences for plea negotiation, that they will receive a discount in the sentence giving their guilty plea. Mr. Speaker, there's also provision in this bill for self-represented accused persons to be given legal aid if they are considering entering into a plea negotiation with the Crown. There are also other safeguards provided by the bill that will ensure that the rights of accused persons are indeed protected. Additionally, under this new bill, the family members of victims and the victims themselves will have the opportunity to participate in the process through the prosecutor. This allows for the impact of the crime on the victims and or their families to be taken into account during this process. Mr. Speaker, the judges in the end will safeguard against this process being used as a means to manipulate the administration of justice or to bring the system into disrepute, given the very crucial supervisory role that judges will play in the process. For example, you will find that a plea judge is not bound to accept the plea unless that judge finds that there is a legal basis for it, as well as there are other provisions set out in the bill for the refusal of the plea by the judge. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, in making my contribution to the debate and in supporting the passage of this bill into law, I am of the view that this bill accords with the highest law of our land and is in sync with good governance in terms of providing for the timely disposal of criminal cases in our courts and the reduction of the backlog. The ultimate outcome can only be an increase in the confidence of our people in the administration of justice in Jamaica, land we love. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Tweed.
I too wish to support this legislation to remind this Honourable House of its origin and to pay tribute to, as the Minister of Justice did, to the former Minister of Justice, his predecessor, for the preliminary work, indeed all of the work, that was done to allow for its presentation now. I want to be brief, sir, and to say that the effecting of a plea bargaining system in Jamaica is, in fact, as it turns out, the only hope for significant reduction in the congestion of the criminal courts. There is, if you a cursory look at the budget, indicates that there is no significant, if any, money for the enablement of more courts. And as a consequence, some of the hundreds of thousands of cases that are carried over for months and months. Earlier today, I came across a simple case, which has been languishing for 2.5 years and sees no early completion possible, and for which, along with many, many others, the possibility of negotiating a plea is obviously the best way to complete the matter and avoid the considerable expense and the reduction of confidence in the legal system that excessive delays inevitably agendas. The truth is, though, Mr. Speaker, that as the Minister, I think, himself has acknowledged, it's going to take quite a change of culture for this to become as well used and as customary as it ought to be. A change of culture on the part of our judges, who are going to have to be thoroughly schooled in the provisions of the law and also in the philosophy behind the law, Mr. Speaker, because many of them are persons with extensive prosecutorial experience, and members of the defense bar, similarly, are accustomed to and have created, may I say, a rhythm around the present system. And this one is going to mean for the dispatch of many cases far more expeditiously than before. And it is also going to affect the costs of criminal litigation. Not an inconsiderable matter for us to consider at all. So deliberate programs of public education and professional education are going to be required in order to make this system work, as we all devoutly hope that it will. I want to emphasize the primacy of legal assistance for those accused who are going to access the plea bargaining system. The member for South Trelawney correctly indicated that where a person is not represented, provision will be made for the person to be so represented. Legal aid in a plea bargaining issue can't be a perfunctory matter. It should never be. But in this case, it needs the most careful instruction by a lawyer in whom the accused has confidence in order to commit themselves to a course of action which has the consequences that a guilty plea will give. I'm hoping, sir, that the legal aid system can be streamlined. It already is a hearty structure. It can be streamlined to extend to all of the requirements of this system. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I'm hoping that our judges will opt for non-custodial sentences for the most part for those prisoners, for those accused, who plead, except in the most egregious cases. It is a fact that a large proportion of those who are incarcerated, come with me to the General Penitentiary any day, Mr. Speaker, you will find so many of our young people there for periods less than 9 months who are going to be out of the system within a year. The prison still, for all the reforms that we have tried, remain schoolhouses for crime and deviance. They are places of idleness for the most part. And as a consequence, if we are really interested in using a plea bargaining system in order to express deterrence and to exact sanctions, let us try as far as possible to ensure that non-custodial sentences are in fact the premium for those who plead guilty. And I'm also finally very pleased that the Minister has indicated that in cases where there is cooperation and where the circumstances befit, it will be possible within a limited period of time, more limited than present legislation exists, for the slate of those who have admitted their guilt, served some sentence of whatever sort, for their slate to be wiped clean, and therefore for them to reconstruct their lives. And lastly, I trust that the provision for offering some restitution to the victims of crime by the person who has acknowledged guilt will be a feature that will become ubiquitous in this new system. It is moving in the right direction, it is a good bill, and it deserves all our support. Thank you.
Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my support to what I consider a bill, Mr. Speaker, that is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who, before having the honor to sit in this House, would have spent significant time in our courts, especially in relation to being part of the defense bar, we have long advocated, Mr. Speaker, that there needs to be a level of certainty brought to the issue of plea bargaining and the issue of sentencing. To be honest, Mr. Speaker, it is oftentimes very difficult as defense counsel to properly and appropriately advise your clients in relation to what is the possible outcome of the matter and in relation to if they were to take a certain course, what would happen. And you can understand the lack of trust in the justice system Mr. Speaker. And the fact that sentencing has been, for the most part, at the discretion of our judges. And we have seen vast differences in sentences, even of similar offenses, that it has made that process of properly guiding your client very, very difficult. So I think, Mr. Speaker, that this bill will go a far way in bringing certainty and in helping our attorneys at the defense bar being able to provide the appropriate advice. And as has been said before, Mr. Speaker, clearly that will help in relation to the reduction of cases and caseloads. But, Mr. Speaker, there's another element, because we often speak about the reduction in the cases, and we don't spend as much time looking at the fact that an accused who is now able to plea starts the process of rehabilitation and ultimately redemption. Our justice system must be about rehabilitation, Mr. Speaker. And the first step towards rehabilitation is being able to say that I have committed a wrong. And that is a critical part. And I think this bill sets the framework that people who have committed an offense, Mr. Speaker, can put their hands up and take responsibility, so that we will start the process of working with them to be once again productive members of society. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say to the Minister and also the Minister of National Security that the success of this bill, when it becomes an act and is put into play, will still depend largely on the ability of the police to put together strong cases, the investigative capacity of our police. Quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, if the case is not well constructed, if sufficient time hasn't been taken to ensure that the facts and the evidence are gathered, so that when confronted with all the information, the accused has little chance, and as such has to take the route of going for a plea. If we're unable to do that, Mr. Speaker, then I worry about the success, Minister. So we have to ensure that in crafting the cases, in gathering the evidence, that the police take sufficient care to prepare airtight cases. I think that will help in terms of the success of the bill when it becomes an act. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support the bill, and I congratulate the Minister of Justice for moving from talk to action. God bless you.
The bill entitled the Plea Negotiations and Agreement Act. The bill has simplified the process of plea negotiations and the entry of guilty plea. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has already gone through the provisions, but among them worth highlighting, Mr. Speaker, is the post-sentence review that is provided for in the bill, and which has taken matters to new frontier. Clause 20 of the bill provides that a convicted person who is serving a sentence and wishes to assist the prosecutor may enter into post-sentence negotiations and agreements with a view to a reduction in sentence or other benefits. There is also a provision for the prosecutor to refer a sentence for review to a plea judge or a court that entered the original sentence if it is in the interest of justice to so do. Mr. Speaker, the bill also provides for sealing of records, again, where the interest of the effective administration of justice so requires. And at clause 24, it provides that the plea judge may, upon application or in his discretion, as the case may be, order that records of negotiations or an agreement be sealed where the plea judge is satisfied that the sealing of the records is in the interests of the effective administration of justice. All in all, Mr. Speaker, the bill has simplified processes in the court and is worthy of support, and I give it my full support.
Mr. Speaker, we ask for further suspension on the bill, and we now begin the debate in the sectoral debate.
You have to move that it be suspended.
I move for the suspension of the debate on the bill shortly entitled Plea Negotiation and Agreement Act 2017.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, now move for the continuation of the sectoral debate, and the first speaker today is the Minister of Energy, Technology, and all of it. We'll speak now.
Minister Wheatley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on rising, I must give thanks to the grand geometrician of the universe for sparing us as a nation and as a parliament, that we can all gather here once again to discuss the people's business and recommit ourselves as instruments of his will. Mr. Speaker, I must take this opportunity to specially recognize you, Mr. Speaker, on your masterful stewardship. I would also like to use this opportunity to recognize my family, my constituents, the industrious and resilient men and women of South Central St. Catherine. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to recognize the Most Honourable Prime Minister and my cabinet colleagues and members of this Honourable House, officers, delegates and members of the Jamaica Labour Party, my three councillors, Councillor Owen Palmer, Jennifer Hull and Arthur Thompson, my constituency executive and constituency office staff, other members of my personal and support staff, my advisors, my hard-working permanent secretary and the team at the ministry who continue to give me their unwavering support. Mr. Speaker, I wish to also thank the various heads of agencies and divisions within the ministry, as well as the chairpersons and directors of the state boards falling under this ministry. Mr. Speaker, in my last presentation to this Honourable House, I stated that the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology would adopt a can-do culture. A culture, Mr. Speaker, in which all plans and projections are actualized and the initiatives and projects entered into are successfully completed. Mr. Speaker, I also spoke to the fact that I would not be a part of the business as usual culture or practice premature and excessive announcements. And so, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with that and the limited time allotted to cover my vast portfolio, let me now give the House an update on what we have accomplished over the past year and what we intend to pursue in the coming year as we build a modern Jamaica through science, energy, and technological innovation. Mr. Speaker, I will start with the energy portfolio. Last year I spoke of my vision of a fit-for-purpose energy architecture that will begin to deliver on this administration's broader goal of economic growth and inclusive development. Mr. Speaker, this took the form of 10 energy priorities. 1, to create a competitive energy environment, to modernize the nation's power generation, diversify energy sources with a strong emphasis on renewables, overall all regulations to create a true 21st century framework combined with newer and more relevant institutions, which together, Mr. Speaker, provide the state infrastructure capable of delivering sustainability and innovation. Mr. Speaker, another priority is to transform the energy efficiency of the Jamaican economy to include, amongst other things, world-class conservation techniques. Another priority, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that the national energy policy, as part of the economic growth model, addresses socio-economic issues to create inclusiveness in our development. Another priority, Mr. Speaker, is to manage our carbon footprint, to preserve Jamaica's natural environment and fulfill our international agreements and obligations. To set targets, Mr. Speaker, for the reduction of national demand for energy over a 5-year period. Usher in a greener energy economy by enforcing energy efficiency standards and codes for appliances and buildings. And last but not least, Mr. Speaker, to revise the refinery reference pricing system and JPS fuel pass-through to ensure that Jamaican consumers enjoy the best prices for energy products, be it petroleum products or electricity. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what we have been doing in furtherance of all that I have just mentioned. Mr. Speaker, a critical component of realizing these targets is the Electricity Act. Mr. Speaker, the Act provides for a modern electricity system. It provides for the promotion of energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy sources. It speaks to the development of an integrated resource plan. And it makes provision for net billing, power wheeling, and auxiliary connections. Mr. Speaker, the Act, in speaking to a modern electricity system, has created a structure that will require the development of a smart grid. Mr. Speaker, this is a vital component to our smart city initiative. Our smart cities rely heavily on a smart grid to, 1, optimize infrastructure and improve grid management, to facilitate more renewable energy integration, to improve distributed generation, and enhance the integration of ICT capabilities. Mr. Speaker, the last point is very important, especially from a national security perspective. Once you have integrated ICT capabilities into the smart cities that we are looking to, in fact, I must mention that New Kingston is the pilot for our smart city initiative, and I must use this opportunity to say thanks to JPS, the National Work Agency, and all our other partners for working together with the ministry to roll out this smart city initiative, which should be up and running in the latter part of this year. In fact, the Jamaica Public Service has gone ahead as it relates to putting up the smart street lights. And as it relates to security, Mr. Speaker, those top lights that will be part of this initiative will be so structured and so equipped that any activity, any legal or criminal activities taking place within that smart city area will be closely monitored by the security forces. Mr. Speaker, we have taken steps to create a new regulatory body that will be responsible for helping to secure Jamaica's business competitiveness. Mr. Speaker, up until the promulgation of the new Electricity Act, the Government Electrical Inspectorate was responsible for the safety inspection of electrical installations, as well as the inspection and certification of petroleum facilities. Mr. Speaker, the GEI, on average, processed 35,000 applications per year. Mr. Speaker, this core process remains highly manual, time-consuming, and prone to errors and delays. Mr. Speaker, our intention is to make this process more efficient by ensuring that the entire application, inspection, and licensing processes for electrical installation is revamped. And as such, Mr. Speaker, a new regulatory agency called the Government Electrical Regulator is being established to ensure electrical safety, whether at the individual, corporate, and/or national level. Mr. Speaker, the GR will be guided by the Electricity Act, and the related regulations that are currently being finalized will provide for the outsourcing of inspections and certification of premises to be electrified to suitable qualified persons from the private sector. This, Mr. Speaker, is another example of how the government and the private sector will partner to ensure business competitiveness and national development. Mr. Speaker, my ministry, having assumed the planning function for the electricity sector, is working to complete an integrated resource plan. This IRP, Mr. Speaker, will take account of the current and future electricity demand projections as the economy expands, and will also take account of all existing generation plans, determine the optimal generation capacity requirements for the future, and suggest optimal mix of generating sources for Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, this IRP will inform the procurement of new generating capacity going forward, as well as the investment requirements for the transmission and distribution system over the medium to long term. So, Mr. Speaker, for the first time, the energy sector will be developed in a structured way consistent with the national energy policy. Mr. Speaker, I also want to officially advise the Parliament that the Electricity Sector Enterprise Team, ESET, has now transitioned into the generation procurement entity as required under the Act. The new board has been appointed by Cabinet, and its immediate focus will be the IRP requirements, which has consideration for an additional 100 megawatts of renewables, at least 45 megawatts of waste to energy, approximately 30 megawatts of hydropower, and 200 megawatts for a special economic zone. Mr. Speaker, renewable energy is paramount in building a modern and competitive Jamaica. 2016 saw the diversification of the country's energy sources in a significant way. Last year, we ushered in an additional 80 megawatts of generating capacity for renewable sources. 24 megawatts was commissioned in June 2016 with the implementation of Wigton 3. 36.6 megawatts of wind power was commissioned in August 2016 by Blue Mountains Renewables Limited. Content Solar completed construction and began supply of 20 megawatts of electricity to the grid. Mr. Speaker, simply put, the country is on course to achieve its 1330 target. That is 30% of our electricity coming from renewable sources by 2030. Mr. Speaker, this is how we build a modern Jamaica through energy innovation. Mr. Speaker, last year, March, a license was awarded to 8 Rivers Energy Company to supply up to 37 megawatts of electricity from a solar photovoltaic plant located in Westmoreland. Mr. Speaker, The total investment for this project is approximately US $50 million. This is slated to be at a record low wholesale price of US 8.54 cents per kilowatt hour to be commissioned in December of 2018. Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to announce that the Wigton Wind Farm is not just a wind farm anymore. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Wigton Wind Farm in last November opened up its upgraded resource center with a modern renewable energy training lab, outfitted with working models from the Renewables Academy in Germany. Mr. Speaker, this resource center now serves as the region's premier renewable energy training facility. Mr. Speaker, the JPS Bulk Power Plant in Montego Bay has now been fully converted to a dual-fuel efficient plant using LNG and automotive diesel oil. Mr. Speaker, this plant has a generating capacity of 120 megawatts. This plant will be supplied LNG from a terminal in Montego Bay, which was commissioned and opened in November 2016 by the Most Honourable Prime Minister. In fact, Mr. Speaker, over $200 million was invested in the construction of this LNG terminal by New Fortress Energy North Holdings Limited. And Mr. Speaker, if that was not enough, just about 2 weeks ago, ground was broken for the construction of a new JPS plant in Old Harbour, St. Catherine, valued at some US $330 million, which will replace the current 40-year-old oil-based plant at the same location. Mr. Speaker, this LNG powered plant, which will generate some 192.6 megawatts of electricity, represents the largest local investment ever in the local energy sector, totally financed by a local consortium. Mr. Speaker, this is a clear indication that the private sector recognizes that the country is on the right path towards prosperity. Mr. Speaker, this is how we build a modern Jamaica through energy innovation and partnerships. Mr. Speaker, hydropower currently contributes a total capacity of 30.7 megawatts to the grid. And with funding from the government of Jamaica and the World Bank, hydro feasibility studies have been completed on 12 rivers, which shows a potential of adding 26 megawatts of generating capacity. A little more on this. Such is life. Mr. Speaker, not only must we find efficient ways of generating, we must also look at how to be more efficient in consuming. Mr. Speaker, last year saw the continuation of the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Program, EECP, as well as the Energy Security Efficiency and Enhancement Project. Mr. Speaker, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Program installed and assisted with various energy efficiency projects at the following facilities: at the Ministry of Finance Investigation Department, the Kingston Public Hospital, Tax Administration Jamaica, the Donald Sangster Building in Montego Bay, the Ministry of Education Head Office, Spanish Town Hospital, Savlamar Hospital, Kingston Public Hospital, and the Ministry of Health Blood Bank. Mr. Speaker, the annual savings realized from these retrofits has so far resulted in a combined saving of 3.6 million kilowatt hours and cumulative monetary saving of approximately $131,544,491.52. Mr. Speaker, all these things contribute to building a modern Jamaica through energy efficiency, conservation, and innovation. Mr. Speaker, through modernized power generation, diverse energy sources, new legislation, and energy efficiency strategies, Jamaica has been successful in reducing our carbon dioxide emissions. The additional renewable energy capacity of over 152 megawatts, when fully commissioned, will lead to a reduction of over 450,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. The expanding LNG market, Mr. Speaker, will also play its part in carbon emissions reduction, being a cleaner form of energy than the traditional ADO. So, Mr. Speaker, what does all of this ultimately mean for Jamaica? Our first year at the helm has seen Jamaica hailed as a regional leader in energy, with the country being ranked #1 in the region and cited as a global case study for energy diversification by the World Economic Forum. Mr. Speaker, we also saw our national energy policy being awarded the best government energy infrastructure strategy in the Caribbean by the International Monetary Fund. Mr. Speaker, in moving forward, our Growth Beyond plan, which focuses on affordable and competitive energy, is still ongoing through R&D, oil and gas explorations, as well as production clusters. Mr. Speaker, embracing renewable energy power sources must become a reality for the common man and woman in Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, this will be achieved through updated grid codes permitting wide-scale adoption of renewable energy power sources. The small man in Jamaica, in going solar, will be more independent. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing, we are democratizing energy and building a modern Jamaica through energy innovation. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology and the Ministry of Housing will review regulations to permit the National Housing Trust and their compliant applicants to borrow for a solar PV system and allow them to repay the loan over 5 to 20 years of their mortgage. Mr. Speaker, this is putting energy in the hands of the common man. Mr. Speaker, Project Silk aimed at improving street lighting installations, loss reduction and community development is ongoing, and we will expand the number of community interventions, Mr. Speaker, as well as add a solar component in the current financial year. Mr. Speaker, in the continued search for indigenous resources, the PBCJ's oil and gas exploration program is in an advanced stage of 2D seismic survey and analysis, with special emphasis around the Pedro Bank. We are also looking to move into the 3D seismic phase to follow right after we have completed the 2D phase. Mr. Speaker, in fact, we are in advanced negotiation to sign a second contractor to do exploratory work. Mr. Speaker, these are the indicators of our commitment. Our commitment, Mr. Speaker, to build a modern Jamaica through energy innovation. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the area of information and communication technology. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall last year I presented my 10-point ICT plan, which outlined what would be my goals for the ICT sector during my tenure as Portfolio Minister. Mr. Speaker, I was quite aggressive in prioritizing 7 out of 10 items in this plan for delivery during the previous and current financial year. Mr. Speaker, these priorities included establishing true universal access by providing free internet access to essential government and educational services for every citizen. Meet Jamaica, the Caribbean's leading producer of technology. Work closely with the Ministry of Education to ensure holistic, efficient, and effective use of technology to support teaching and learning. Drive better ICT governance practices throughout government to make it more efficient and make information more accessible. Repeal the 16-year-old Telecommunication Act and replace it with a new ICT Act and begin the process for creation of a single ICT regulator. Last but not least, Mr. Speaker, we prioritize the promulgation and pass into law data protection legislation. Mr. Speaker, today I am pleased to report that in keeping with the can-do mantra adopted by MSET, we have either completed or are on track for the completion of all priorities for the last fiscal year and this current year. Mr. Speaker, in the face of a considerable amount of doubt, I am proud to announce to this Honourable House that in keeping with this administration's goal of creating a knowledge-based society, some 250-odd government websites, including educational materials by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, have been zero-rated and can now be accessed by all citizens absolutely free. So what this means, Mr. Speaker, if you don't have a data plan, or if you don't have a paid-up data plan, you can access all government websites at no charge. And Mr. Speaker, this is not for as a show, but Mr. Speaker, if we are truly committed to developing a truly knowledge-based society, especially a number of the initiatives that were started before, the tablets in school. This initiative makes the tablets in school initiative, for example, more effective. Because a child with a tablet can now use that tablet at home to access the educational content that is housed on the Ministry of Education's website, if the parent doesn't even have a paid-up plan or a data plan. And so, Mr. Speaker, this is a step forward towards prosperity, Mr. Speaker, because we are engendering prosperity at the early stage of youth development. Mr. Speaker, this is a crowning achievement for the country and indeed for the ministry in my first year as minister. Mr. Speaker, it represents a game-changing shift in the removal of barriers to citizen government engagement. And I want to thank our partners Digicel and Flow for their continued commitment to the growth and development of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, simply put, this is how we build a modern Jamaica through technological innovation. Mr. Speaker, in addition to this game-changing initiative, you may have noticed that the Universal Service Fund has adopted an aggressive stance in the delivery of its mandate to ensure that all citizens are provided with the means to connect to the internet. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely happy with the progress the agency has made in this aspect, and I want to personally acknowledge the leadership and staff of that agency for the truly awesome job they have done in such a short period of time. Mr. Speaker, the total project activities for the 2016-17 fiscal year were grouped into 4 broad areas: community access points, USF Connect Jamaica, which is the public Wi-Fi initiative, broadband connections, and of course, special projects. Mr. Speaker, community access points enable members of Jamaican communities to use the internet at minimal or no cost to them to facilitate research, bill payments, education, communication, business, marketing, and social networking. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with this administration's goal of creating a truly knowledge-based society, we believe that the continued rollout of the CAPS was very important. Mr. Speaker, during the 2016-17 period, we have brought the total number of completed community access points to 255. Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight a number of issues pertaining to the CAP rollouts of the past compared to what we will be embarking on in the future. Mr. Speaker, on assuming office, we sought to do an analysis of the CAP program, and our findings reveal a number of deficiencies and areas where major improvements must be made to ensure sustainability. Mr. Speaker, some of the main areas of concern for us were the high cost of running CAPs, or the CAP sites. Issues such as high electricity bill, poor connectivity, lack of maintenance, for example, were some of the main areas of concern. Sustainability, Mr. Speaker, was another area of concern, because after deployment, it was found that a number of these CAP sites, as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, over 70 of the CAP sites that we found were deemed non-functioning for a variety of reasons. Another issue, another finding, Mr. Speaker, was the usage of the CAPs to their full potential. Many CAPs were being underutilized or otherwise being used for idle time work. And a very important point, Mr. Speaker, to note was the lack of awareness of the existence of CAP sites. In fact, Mr. Speaker, CAP sites were deployed in communities, but people did not know where they were. So, Mr. Speaker, in an effort to address these gaps and to ensure sustainability of the CAPs, and more important, Mr. Speaker, value for the money, I instructed the Universal Service Fund to begin deploying solar systems on all newly developed or deployed CAP sites, and to begin a program of retrofitting all CAP sites with solar systems. The Universal Service Fund was also instructed, Mr. Speaker, to develop programs to engage members of the community, to train and teach them about the value of the CAPs, and to show the kinds of opportunities that can be derived from the use of the CAP. Mr. Speaker, I just want to use the opportunity to thank the National Youth Service for partnering with the Universal Service Fund to provide human resource for training community members in the operation and the running of the CAP sites. Mr. Speaker, I also instructed the Universal Service Fund to develop community awareness programs to ensure that the immediate community and surrounding areas know where they can find their CAP sites, and explore new ways of lowering the cost of keeping CAP sites up and running. Mr. Speaker, last year, we launched an ambitious signature project at the Universal Service Fund, dubbed USF Connect Jamaica, or USF Connect JA. Mr. Speaker, the USF Connect JA project is a free public Wi-Fi service that is being implemented by the Universal Service Fund in an effort to provide greater and easier access to broadband internet service for all Jamaican citizens across the island. Mr. Speaker, this initiative is expected to fuel the government's plan of creating a knowledge-based society by removing any barrier that currently exists for citizens who may be unable to afford connectivity. Mr. Speaker, during the period of review, public Wi-Fi networks were installed at 2 locations in the corporate area, at Devon House and at Mandela Park in Halfway Tree. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with our aggressive effort to bring public Wi-Fi to the entire country, I invite the members of this Honourable House to join me at this time to launch not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 new public Wi-Fi locations. Today, Mr. Speaker, we will initiate the provision of public Wi-Fi service at St. William Grants Park in Parade, the hip strip of Olympic Way in St. Andrew,
what about Barbican Square?
Junction, Mr. Speaker, Junction in St. Elizabeth, and Mandeville, Mr. Speaker, in Manchester. So I ask my colleague members to direct your attentions to the screen, where we will show you the proceedings at each of these locations and initiate the availability of public Wi-Fi service. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, prosperity at work. Mr. Speaker, this is how we build a modern Jamaica, by connecting our citizens through technology innovation. And Mr. Speaker, these are initiatives geared towards improving the lives of all Jamaicans. And Mr. Speaker, at one point persons thought that we were only concentrating on the main urban areas within the corporate area. But we are ensuring, Mr. Speaker, that every nook and cranny, we have connection. We are touching the lives of every corner, every single Jamaican. Don't worry, you will get one too. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, during the last financial year, a total of 47 broadband connections were completed. The Jamaica Constable Force got 44. 3 educational institutions were outfitted with broadband connections at a cost of over 52 million Jamaican dollars. Mr. Speaker, this brings the total numbers of completed broadband connection as at March 31st, 2017 to 430. Mr. Speaker, there were 12 special projects completed for the fiscal year. We provide funded support to the following service entities to upgrade and improve their ICT infrastructure. The Caribbean Maritime Institute, which is now the Caribbean Maritime University, Minister Henry. The College of Agriculture, Science and Education, Mica University. The University of Technology, Jamaica. The Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, and of course the Jamaica Constabulary Force, and a very important community, Mr. Speaker, that of the disabled community. We supported the Caribbean Maritime Institute with a grant of some $310 million, and now the CMI, Mr. Speaker, is able to implement the necessary physical and technological changes to achieve its university status. I want to remind the House that the CMI, which will be the CMU, I think we passed the bill, so I think we need to start to refer to it correctly as the CMU. Not yet appointed. But we are on track to prosperity. So we're moving on with CMU. Mr. Speaker, the Caribbean Maritime Institute really is the premier maritime institution within this region. And I'm sure the Member of Parliament is very pleased and is not too perturbed by my frequent visit to that part of his constituency, especially seeing that we are not in election mode. The Jamaica Constable Force, Mr. Speaker, got some amount of assistance from the Universal Service Fund. In fact, the USF assisted in the upgrading of the Police National Computer Center, which included the purchasing of some 1,000 tablets and related network systems, the purchasing of automated systems for palm and fingerprinting activities. Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the disabled community, the USF has made special provision to empower persons with disabilities through the appropriate use of ICT. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, the USF has provided grant funding of over $90 million to the Center for Disability Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, to be used to purchase hardware and specialized equipment. Mr. Speaker, again I put it, this is how we build a modern Jamaica through technological innovation. Mr. Speaker, eLearning Jamaica Limited continue to use ICT solutions to facilitate learning in schools. The major achievements over the period included the provision of technical management and support services to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, the Central Repository for Educational Materials was upgraded to a virtual learning environment. A comprehensive public education campaign and school visits program was launched to promote the use of the VLE among students taking CSEX. In fact, Mr. Speaker, some 274 teachers were trained in technology integration using Microsoft products and on-site professional development. Mr. Speaker, after a detailed and exhaustive reassessment by the team at eLearning Jamaica Limited, we expect that the much-awaited tablets in school program will commence full rollout this year. A comprehensive project plan has been completed and a cabinet submission is on its way to cabinet for approval. Mr. Speaker, this will pave the way for the subsequent rollout of this project. Mr. Speaker, please note, however, that a partial rollout has already begun with primary schools being targeted. Schools that participated in the pilot project are now part of the initial rollout. Mr. Speaker, I must note here that there have been some fundamental changes to the structure of this program. This new structure, Mr. Speaker, will see the distribution of over 17,000 tablets to over 1,000 infant and primary schools. Schools, Mr. Speaker, will adopt a class-set approach to the use of the tablets. This approach will allow us to implement greater security measures to curb access to inappropriate content. Mr. Speaker, I routinely speak about the rapidly changing information and communications technology landscape and the need to ensure that the laws which govern the sector are modern, relevant, fit for purpose, balanced, and supportive of the growth and the development we wish to pursue. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to report that we are well on our way to achieving this objective. As such, Mr. Speaker, in this legislative year, we will be tabling two important pieces of legislation, the Data Protection Act and the new ICT Act. Mr. Speaker, while in opposition, my colleagues and myself raised many concerns about the Cybercrimes Act, which was eventually amended and passed in 2015. Recently, Mr. Speaker, there has been renewed interest and outcry as it relates to how various sections of this law is interpreted and enforced. So in keeping, Mr. Speaker, with our original stance that the law, as it was passed, required further enhancements, I will be beginning the process to initiate review of this piece of legislation during this financial year. Mr. Speaker, in an effort to drive better ICT governance practices throughout government, making it more efficient and to make information more accessible, Cabinet approved the ICT roadmap, which provides the blueprint to make this happen. Mr. Speaker, the first step is the creation of a new ICT authority, which will ultimately replace eGov Jamaica Limited and drive the ICT operations of government. Mr. Speaker, we are in the process of contracting a consulting firm to develop the process for transition to this new ICT authority. This process is expected to be completed in the next 18 to 24 months. Mr. Speaker, the formation of the ICT Authority will be supported by the development and implementation of a new funding model for ICT. Mr. Speaker, a more holistic approach to funding the recurrent budget for ICT service delivery in government will be adopted. This, Mr. Speaker, will support the centralized model of delivering ICT as a shared service. Mr. Speaker, for governance to take root, we must have sound leadership. The recruitment of a new government CIO is far advanced, and we are looking to complete this exercise in very short order. I also want to, Mr. Speaker, use this opportunity to acknowledge the stellar contribution of Dr. Louis Shalal, the former CIO, for his yeoman work during his time in the post. Mr. Speaker, we are also in the process of finalizing the recruitment process for a new CEO for eGov Jamaica. My information is that the candidates have been shortlisted and interviews will begin this month. Through the office of the CIO in the ministry and eGov Jamaica Limited, a number of achievements were realized. The GOJ's ICT governance framework was approved, Mr. Speaker, in 2016, and the ICT Council was approved in April of last year. Mr. Speaker, finally on the topic of leadership. By the end of this month, we will be launching the Government of Jamaica ICT think tank. Mr. Speaker, this is an eGov initiative geared at facilitating and generating ideas, market research, and product concepts for government to citizens or government to business services. Again, Mr. Speaker, I put it to you that these are critical components of building a modern Jamaica through technological innovation. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, administrations have talked about joined-up government. It is my goal, Mr. Speaker, to make the concept of joining government a reality through the long-awaited creation of GovNet. Mr. Speaker, GovNet will be the single wide-area backbone network connecting all government agencies and services. We have engaged a specialist firm to provide a detailed design, equipment and specification, and costing of the network. Mr. Speaker, this will be completed in 4 months.
Minister, the member time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the minister's time be extended by 5 minutes for him to complete his presentation.
The motion is that the member be given 5 minutes to complete his presentation. Those in favour? Those against? As of it. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, before closing, I think I need to speak a bit on cybersecurity. Mr. Speaker, cybersecurity continues to be an area of primary importance to not only me, but to every Jamaican. Last year, I issued instructions to conduct for the first time, Mr. Speaker, a security audit of all government websites and online services. Following the security audit, with the support of CERT, which is the Cyber Incident Response Team, the JCF, the JDF, and a web security policy for the government is being developed, and this is expected to be completed within the next 6 months. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, efforts are currently underway to address vulnerabilities that were identified from the audit as immediate threats. Mr. Speaker, I want to, at this time, make special mention of the stellar work being done by the Cyber Incident Response Team headed by Dr. Monifa Yulin. Since its launch, Jamaica CERT has been promoting best practices to raise awareness of the risks that exist with the use of technological devices, as well as to help citizens guard against unsafe cyber practices. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we have been partnering with the Jamaica Bankers Association to raise the level of public awareness. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to encourage the Ministry of Finance to help us to get the resources we need in the form of the requested staffing and post approvals for this critical entity. Mr. Speaker, we must understand the value of being proactive in our cyber defense efforts. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we don't use sense, it will cost us dollars in the long run. Now, Mr. Speaker, I turn to the science portfolio. Last year, I highlighted the fact that as a country, we have failed to use scientific research to drive our decision-making processes. I also made mention, Mr. Speaker, of a worrying metric that less than 1% of GDP is spent on research and development. In fact, Mr. Speaker, it is far less than 1%. It is less than 0.1%. Mr. Speaker, countries that are experiencing prosperity or exponential growth have one thing in common: specific policy directives to increase investment in R&D. In fact, Mr. Speaker, econometric studies estimate that the return on investment in R&D range from some 20 to 40%. Mr. Speaker, deliberate actions must be taken to fix this dilemma. We are hard at work, nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, as we have drafted the Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, which will guide us as to how we incorporate STI in unleashing the creative potential of our people, catalyzing development and sustainable prosperity, and empowering Jamaicans to excel in an evolving world. Mr. Speaker, this is a policy that I ask all the ministries to support as we seek your input in developing this policy. With that said, Mr. Speaker, I'm personally elated to announce to this Honourable House that come tomorrow, I will refocus Jamaica's acknowledgement of the importance of science by launching the National Science and Technology Fund. Mr. Speaker, it's a national fund that will support high-impact, mission-based projects. We will fund research and technology that have the greatest potential to create more jobs, new products, cleaner environments, and safer communities. Mr. Speaker, this fund will also support technology transfer from innovators to industrial and service sectors, intellectual property support, human resource development, and popularization of science. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with my mantra of action and not just talk, the fund has already started to do work. Its first task, Mr. Speaker, is to support the joint collaboration in science and technology between South Africa and Jamaica. Under this cooperation agreement, we hosted the South African Minister of Science and Technology last year. At that meeting, Mr. Speaker, we agreed to partner in conducting high-quality research with an emphasis in indigenous knowledge systems and water. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, 90 million Jamaican dollars is now available for Jamaica's scientific community over the next 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the ability of a nation to promote sustainable economic growth depends heavily on the ability of that nation to improve innovation. Mr. Speaker, we are looking to put together, in collaboration with our partners, a science and technology park. But Mr. Speaker, before closing, I have to touch that of our research in nutraceutics, especially that of the medical marijuana industry. Mr. Speaker, we have to be very careful that we do not lose this opportunity, Mr. Speaker. We are a blessed nation and a blessed people, but we are dilly-dallying too much around with the medical marijuana issue, Mr. Speaker. We have to take a conscious decision where we want to go, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to medical marijuana. It is either we are supporting it or we are going to just sit by and let it pass by. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to encourage my colleagues to ensure that we put the support that is necessary to ensure that the CLA goes out and ensure that we have a secure, that we have a productive medical marijuana industry, Mr. Speaker. We have to start lead from the front because we have a crop, Mr. Speaker, with significant medicinal nutraceutical value that is lying idle because we are not serious as it relates to the direction we want to go with medical marijuana. Mr. Speaker, in closing, Jamaica is uniquely poised to propel itself to regional leadership and a staggering level of economic growth. Mr. Speaker, our aim is to build a modern Jamaica through a modern grid that can evolve to meet the demands of our growing economy, through technological innovation to make us a leader in the Caribbean, through a renewed focus on science to build a platform for innovation. Mr. Speaker, we are building a modern Jamaica at the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, and it is my intention, Mr. Speaker, and hope to achieve this in my lifetime. May God bless this Parliament, our people, and Jamaica, land we love. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Central Manchester will now make his contribution to the debate.
Mr. Bunting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start with some acknowledgement and thanks, of course, to the leadership of the opposition and the People's National Party, both present and immediate past. I want to thank them for their support and leadership. My parliamentary colleagues, and of course to your efforts, Mr. Speaker, which sometimes you are tested. I want to recognize His Worship the Mayor of Mandeville and my councillors and constituency team, my personal support team, my wife and family and friends, and my constituents who continue to reward my work with their love and support. All of those mentioned, Mr. Speaker, contribute to varying degrees to make it possible for me to serve in this House. Let me also recognize the students from Bishop Gibson High School in the constituency of Central Manchester who are visiting with us in the gallery. Mr. Speaker, I have served as either opposition spokesman or Minister of National Security since late 2008. This has afforded me over 8 years of intimate knowledge of the complexities and challenges of the sector, as well as a true appreciation for the hard work and dedication of its many professionals. If we believe the many announcements of my friend from St. Mary, this will likely be my valedictory address on the national security portfolio. And I will make sure to use the opportunity to be candid. Before I get into the specifics of the portfolio, I would just like to make a comment on the overall effectiveness of the sectoral debate. Mr. Speaker, this is the second year in a row that as opposition spokesman, I'm scheduled to speak before the counterpart minister. And a similar situation applies to other colleagues in other portfolios. Mr. Speaker, it would be ridiculous to have a budget debate with the opposition spokesman on finance speaking before the Minister of Finance's presentation. And similarly, it must also be counterproductive for a critical portfolio such as national security to be hidden away at the tail end of the debate lineup, avoiding an in-parliament opposition response and circumventing a real debate on what is supposed to be the government's major policy statement on national security.
Strategy.
This sectoral debate should provide a forum for a serious and thoughtful assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of the government's policies and programs. The public would benefit from an elucidation of the issues, and the government could even adopt constructive suggestions by the opposition. Instead, what we see, Mr. Speaker, and Jamaica is not unique in this regard, and I quote from a recent Economist magazine article. What we see is that, I quote, the vitriol on both sides of the partisan divide have made it all but impossible to have and minimal agreement, even on the facts. Mendacity and insults replace substantive debate. Social media trolls and talk show activists then defend the partisan positions. Traditional media too has been infiltrated by political hacks that in most cases don't disclose their partisan agendas. The ultimate consequence is that very little objective debate and analysis takes place, and truth and the public's interest suffers. So without the benefit of a 2017 sectoral presentation from the Security Minister, I will today first comment on the recent legislative initiatives by the administration. Secondly, I'll review the state of crime in our nation. Then I will assess the progress made on some of the minister's 2016 announcements. And I'll conclude with some recommendations. Mr. Speaker, 3 pieces of legislation related to national security were recently tabled, and I want to comment briefly on each. However, before doing so, let me remind the administration that a very important piece of legislation for criminal investigations was passed well over a year ago, the DNA Act, and it still hasn't come into effect because it is awaiting the related regulations. No, it's waiting on you to come with it. Recently, the first conviction under the 2014 anti-gang legislation was handed down, and that is good. Yet we hear of a ring of international fraudsters targeting bank ATMs last year who were not charged under this legislation, even though they met all the criteria, and got only light sentences as a result. I suggest more training is needed in the use of the anti-gang law and other existing legislation, even while we look to pass new legislation. Mr. Speaker, as the one who largely conceptualized and shepherded the MOCA agency into being, I am happy that the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Act, which was far advanced when we left office, has now been tabled. This act will give MOCA operational independence and authority to combat serious crime and corruption in collaboration with local and foreign law enforcement agencies. While we welcome the amendment to the Defense Act that provides for the Jamaica National Service Corps as a new arm of the JDF, we again caution that this will not accommodate the youth who are most likely to be recruited into gangs and eventually become high violence producers. In our time, we identified the most at-risk young persons and designed interventions to help them, even those who were already on the margin of gang involvement. This is why the CSJP project that saw 500 youth doing one-year construction skills internships with the JDF Engineering Regiment was so important. It provided an opportunity for resocialization for these at-risk young people while they were learning a useful skill. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague from Central Kingston has said, the scale of the interventions needed for unattached and at-risk youth is probably at least 10 times what is currently available in order to really dent the problem in the short to medium term. The opposition will support any initiative that effectively addresses this problem. I turn now, Mr. Speaker, to the law reform zones of special operations, special security and community development measures Act. The opposition has serious reservations about many aspects of this bill, and our participation in the Joint Select Committee should not be interpreted as support of the measures contained therein. A sentence from the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons telegraphs the true purpose of the legislation. It states, and I quote, "This act should not have the negative impact on Jamaica, which could likely occur if a declaration of a state of public emergency was made," end quote. In other words, this act attempts to give state of emergency type powers to the security forces without having to declare a state of emergency and make it subject to parliamentary review. This raises a number of concerns and risks. The power to seize and detain property without warrant and the new criterion for arresting without warrant are recipes for abuse of power. We went this way before, Mr. Speaker, with the Suppression of Crime Act, and it didn't work. Mr. Speaker, this new bill would give police powers to the military, which is something that has always been avoided. The curfew regime being delegated to ground commanders is dangerous and should continue to require the permission of the minister. The scheduled amendments to the Anti-Gang Act contained within the bill are quite frankly incoherent, and it is not clear how new measures like control orders, which are not defined, fit into the scheme of the Anti-Gang Act. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the social intervention objectives set out in the bill do not require legislative facilitation, but can be accomplished administratively once adequate resources are made available in these communities. Let me turn now, Mr. Speaker, to a review of the crime statistics. All the data that I'm going to quote comes from the Statistics and Information Management Unit of the JCF. It is important that we start with the facts and then conduct an objective analysis of the data and the trends. It is also important to debunk alternative facts, because if we do not, then we will only feed the fake news monster. Last week, American media pointed to many policy reversals on campaign issues. For example, avoiding the use of military force in Syria, labeling China a currency manipulator, and views on whether or not NATO was obsolete. It appears that the same campaign strategists advised the JLP, since this JLP administration has also reversed their position on major campaign issues, such as taking funds from the National Housing Trust for budgetary support, such as claiming that no new taxes would be necessary to fund the 1.5 million tax-free income threshold. And Mr. Speaker, most important for this presentation, Prime Minister, telling the public that they can leave their doors open at night and not be killed once they vote JLP. Of course, Mr.
Because you're drunk at night.
Just if the Prime Minister doesn't remember, for his, just a little aid memoir, I just run it on the screen for you. I know me say so. I know me say so. Of course. Of course, the facts tell a different story, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm going over this not to score partisan points, but because all of us in public life must be held accountable for what we say. All of us in public life must be held accountable for what we say. Truth matters. Truth matters, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given that there were, on average, 1,470 murders per year during the 2008 to 2011 JLP administration, compared with 1,128, 342 less per year on average during the PNP administration. And at the first year of the current JLP administration had 1,350 murders. I really hope that the Prime Minister has disabused himself of this idea of murder being higher under the PNP. And we don't have to make a partisan. There are a lot of issues we can differ on and we can campaign on. But citizen security and public safety should not have to be one of them. Mr. Speaker, the truth is most major crimes over the last 7 years or so have been on a downward trend. If we look at the chart, we can see, for example, for robberies, we see it declining, a steady decline from over 3,000 per year in 2011 to under 1,500 in 2016. If we look at a chart, the next chart, which shows rape and aggravated assault, again, they've declined from over 900 incidents in each category in 2012 to under 500 in each category by last year, a steady downward trajectory. Shootings have also trended down, except for an uptick last year. But murders, on the other hand, are a bit different. They didn't show so much of a steady decline as almost a step down after the Tivoli operation in 2010 to a new normal that fluctuated within a band. If you look on the, if you could back up, if you look within that band, the two black lines are 1,100 murders plus or minus 10%. That's what that band establishes. And what you'll see for the years 2011 to 2015 pretty much bounced around within that band. In 2016, for the first time since 2010, it broke out of that band and went up to 1,350 murders. The number of murders so far this year, year to date, is already 21% higher than the figure in 2016. So we should all be very concerned, Mr. Speaker, that murders may be trending back towards pre-2010 levels. But the aggregate statistics don't tell the whole story. In Era 1, the western parishes of Trelawney, St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland, murders so far this year exceed the comparable period in 2016 by 47%. What? By 47%. 1 year, that is the sort of increase. And last year was the worst year that we had seen in St. James. Murders had started increasing sharply in Era 1 from around this time last year, which is why the public would have been relieved to hear the minister announce in his 2016 sectoral presentation that, and I quote, "We will be expanding Mocha West. A mobile reserve west will be established. Additional training space will be created in Western Jamaica. A Coast Guard base will be established in Montego Bay. The amount of officers in Western Jamaica will be significantly increased." Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, these measures have not been implemented in any real way. So it is not surprising that the murder rate continues to climb in Western Jamaica. Well, really, none of them have been implemented. I was trying to be kind. Some recruits, some graduates from the academy were sent to Era 1, but because of the rate of attrition, we really don't have any net gain, any significant net gain. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I want to turn to some of the other announcements, not just the ones that affect the West. I want to review some of the other announcements. And I'm only going to focus on those made by the Minister of National Security. Because I heard, for example, the Minister of Transport announcing that the JDF Air Wing would be moving to Vernon Field. And I'm not going to take that on. I will assume that saner heads will prevail. And Prime Minister, you will allow that one to go outside the office. But the ministers, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Security's presentations are typically full of announcements and bombastic rhetoric, and his 2016 sectoral presentation was no different. If talk alone could bring down crime, we would be the safest country on earth. The minister regularly cusses dirty criminals, lambasts policemen for family court appearances, and invokes protection from his Obiaman uncle. But let us follow up on some of the announcements made by the minister last year and see how he's doing with implementation, because his successful implementation is what drives results, not announcements. Mr. Speaker, the most potentially game-changing announcement was the promise of unprecedented resources for the fight against crime. And let me quote the minister. We as a government have decided to make tackling crime our #1 priority. Hence, this administration is going to, over a 3-year period, make the largest investment in the national security apparatus in our history. Never before will so much be invested in ensuring our peace and safety. We are not talking millions, but billions. End quote. End quote. Mr. Speaker, anyone who listened to that presentation would have reasonably expected the government to increase the national security budget by at least 10 to 15% per year for the next 3 years. Instead, what we have seen is a reduced allocation. And Minister, if you say nonsense, here is the book. And the member from Central, St. Catherine, will tell you. In 2017-18, the total recurrent and capital budget is 60.7 billion, a reduction of 4.1 billion from the 64.8 billion in 2016-2017. And even compared with the 2015-16 actual expenditure, this year's budget is about the same in real terms after adjusting for inflation. So there has been no new, certainly not unprecedented resources. The main objective of an annual budget is allocating resources in conformity with both policies and fiscal targets. How can the government state that tackling crime is its #1 priority and then reduce the budgetary allocation for fighting crime? Where are the voices of the Economic Growth Council or the private sector more broadly to highlight this inconsistency? Other promises from last year: inmates will be dressed in brightly colored suits, electronically monitored as they work in communities. No sign of these. We will roll out more mobile police stations. No sign of these. We will restart the graduate entry program. Not started. We will review the police book of rules and ensure each officer gets a copy. Officers still don't have the book. We're purchasing dogs from Cuba. No sign of Cuban dogs. A national CCTV is coming. No standards. We're moving to engage retired policemen and women, business people, and civic-minded Jamaicans on a voluntary basis to become special district constables. We will utilize the database at the FLA to invite licensed firearm holders to join this corps of volunteers. We have heard nothing further on this. We will be increasing the number of vehicles that will be converted to use LPG. We're seeing a 60% savings. This has not happened. It is the same 2 vehicles the GSF has operating on LPG now that as it had a year ago. 4 was in the pilot, 2 owned by the GSF. We will seek to have an increase in the mandatory minimum sentences. Nothing has come to Parliament. Minimum sentences for gun crimes. We will seek to have all gun murders classified as capital murders. Nothing has come to Parliament. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the only major announcement that the minister has, to an extent, followed through with is one that is misconceived and will cost taxpayers dearly. That is, we will increase the mobility of the police using used vehicles. This issue, Mr. Speaker, requires more than passing treatment. When I became minister in 2012, I found the GSF vehicle fleet with 129 different make and model combinations. I tasked a committee of the JDF, the GSF, and the ministry personnel, chaired by then Lieutenant Colonel Cummings, to develop a vehicle fleet procurement and maintenance policy for the GSF. One recommendation from that committee, which was followed thereafter, involved limiting the purchase of each category of vehicle to no more than 2 or 3 models per category. That way, over time, there would be a reduction in the range of makes and models in the fleet, as well as a reduction in the range of tools, spares, etc., that the TNR or area garages would have to stock.
That makes sense.
The 2 to 3 models selected in each category were recommended by the technical staff based on the experience of operating those vehicles. A great deal of work was done in this area, and I'm disappointed to see all that work now going down the tubes. Members will recall that 6 weeks ago I tabled some straightforward questions on this used car procurement process. The minister has been stalling. The answers are 3 weeks overdue. Clearly, these answers are requiring much attention from the administration's spin doctors. Notwithstanding an available budget of over $500 million to purchase 240 cars, all that the police received during the entire fiscal year was 40 used vehicles. The ministry could only organize itself to procure and have delivered 40 vehicles, even though they had $500 million available. Among the first 40 vehicles, the Toyota Corolla Axio 2014 was the most preferred. 13 of these vehicles were purchased for the GSF in October last year at a price of $2.3 million. Let us compare these vehicles per vehicle, $2.3 million per vehicle. Let us compare these vehicles with a new Toyota Corolla XL, the type of patrol car normally purchased for the GSF during my time as minister. And interestingly, the type of car the ministry recently purchased at $2.75 million each. Used cars for the police, but only new cars for the minister's office or the ministry. The young child in the JPS ad would say, how come? But let me go further. The new Corolla XL has a more powerful 1600cc engine versus a 1500cc engine for the Axio. It has a more spacious interior, a stronger suspension system, since the Axio is only manufactured for the domestic market in Japan. And the new XL comes with a 3-year manufacturer's warranty. But the minister pays more than 80% of the new Corolla price for a 3-year-old Axio with a smaller engine, weaker suspension, cramped interior, and no manufacturer's warranty. How come? How come?
Bobby, shortly start to your uncle.
This is a comment from a senior officer of the JSF, and I quote, most people in the JSF hated the idea of buying used cars. Then when the first set of Axios came and were deployed, they were found not to be up to standard. The drivers complained about them incessantly, end quote. But it gets even stranger. At least vehicles bought from the stock of a local dealer can be inspected. The next phase of acquisition went against the advice of the Jamaican proverb to not buy pussy in a bag. The ministry issued a selective tender for used cars. The successful bidder will supply 80 Axios and 120 Hilux
Mr.
pickups.
Speaker, point of order.
Mr. Speaker, my time is short. Could you please stop the clock?
Mr.
The
Bunting,
Speaker is misleading the House. He's saying the ministry... Please take a seat. He's saying the ministry issued a selective tender. Absolute falsehood.
Issued a tender.
Tender, it was published about 6 times in the 2 major newspapers in the country.
Yeah, he selected the 2 major newspapers.
No problem, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Bunting.
The ministry issued a tender for used cars. The successful bidder will supply 80 Toyota 2012 Axios and 120 Hilux 2012 pickups at a total cost of 427 million. But tendering locally on these 80 Axios and 120 pickups is really an inane exercise because no single local dealer would have these quantities in stock. So a local dealer can only tender at a speculative price, then attempt to find vehicles to import for that price if they are successful. Well, the buyer, the Ministry of National Security, has to evaluate the bids purely on price because there are no actual cars to be inspected. Other than the price, no criterion can be objectively evaluated until after the tender is awarded. Additionally, the condition of a 5-year-old vehicle varies widely. For example, a 2012 Axio with a single owner that's never been in an accident and has done 40,000 kilometers is of much greater value than one that has been used as a fleet taxi with multiple collisions and driven 400,000 kilometers.
Oh, God.
So we're not even comparing apples with apples. The successful dealer with the lowest price will then have to purchase vehicles in the poorest condition because these are the only vehicles that will be available for the lowest price. So the minister has designed a system that is guaranteed to deliver used cars that are in the worst possible condition to our police force.
I hear you have a whole pile of dashboard store on our place.
Mr. Speaker, I couldn't find an example of another police service in the world with a policy to purchase all used vehicles. Not even countries poorer than Jamaica. But it gets worse, Mr. Speaker. It gets worse.
10 minutes more because you were interrupted.
Yeah, add the 2 minutes of interruption.
Add the 4 minutes of the interruption. Let me see how much of a man you are.
Minister,
I know your association. You're supposed to be an honourable man.
members, please. The member's time for speaking has expired. Minister, you may.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the member's time be extended for 5 minutes for him to complete his presentation.
No. You're not an honourable man.
Add the 2 minutes.
Add the 2 minutes. You know what position you're in?
The motion
You're
is
the House
that
leader.
members, please,
So one day Bush are working.
that the member's time be extended
Keep
by
your comments
5
to
minutes.
yourself.
Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Mr. Bunting,
I know.
your
Thank
time
you,
has
Mr. Speaker.
expired.
Mr. Speaker, this huge purchase contract was granted to a dealer that I understand had not imported a single vehicle in the last 2 years, since March 2015. Yet the ministry has handed over 200 million to this entity as an advance or deposit.
What?
Were the financial...
Mr. Speaker, a point of order again.
Please stop
Mr.
the clock,
Speaker,
sir.
a point of order.
1 minute, Minister. Let us stop the clock for Mr. Bunting. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the tender went through. The tender was assessed by the NCC. The NCC made recommendations and we abided by those recommendations. So to have the
What is the
member...
point of order? What is the point of order? What is the point of order?
To have,
Members,
Mr. Speaker,
please.
to have the member misleading the House, we
Mislead
cannot...
how? Mislead how? State how? State how? How? You know what? Maybe the dogs from Cuba need to be around to learn
Just
English.
wait, Minister. Wait, Minister. Members, the Minister is on his feet addressing the Speaker. Proceed, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
How?
The NCC supervised,
And the yam grow you, don't let it come
the
from.
NCC made their recommendations, and we abided by those recommendations. Those are conditions of the tender.
Mr. Bunting.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Bunting.
having listened to the minister, there is nothing that I have to change in what I said.
Yes, that's a
I said the ministry has handed over 200 million to this entity as an advance deposit. It was apparently a condition of the bid. But my question is, were the financial statements of this entity assessed to determine its financial capability?
No.
The other question the minister will need to answer, when he comes time to answer the questions, is whether the Ministry of National Security has any fit and proper criteria that they apply when issuing a huge contract for over 400 million. Does it matter, for example, whether a director or shareholder of a supplier company is the subject of adverse traces, as the contract, to use the Contractor General's term, by local or international law enforcement, or has previously convicted of narcotics-related offenses or deported for these offenses? Mr. Speaker,
Ministry of National Security.
the Ministry of National Security.
Doesn't that?
Mr. Speaker, the U.S. last week dropped a bomb known by the acronym of MOAB, colloquially referred to as the mother of all bombs. I believe this used car procurement for the JCF will come to be known as the mother of all bandulu.
What?
In closing, Mr. Speaker, I'll make some recommendations to the ministry and to the administration. The management and implementation capability of the public sector is limited. So it is important to focus on only a few priorities and to not interfere where things are working. Jimmy Carter's Office of Management and Budget Director, Bert Lance, believed he could save billions for taxpayers if he could get the government to adopt a simple motto. I quote, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." He explained, that's the trouble with government. Fixing things that aren't broken and not fixing things that are broken. In his first year, we have already seen the minister fixing the JCF vehicle fleet procurement policy that wasn't broken. We also see where top professional managers were removed from the FLA, from PICA, and even recently the project manager of Unite for Change had her contract terminated prematurely. Some of these, let me say that, Mr. Speaker, none of these were political appointees, and all three were acclaimed for their professional performance. Minister, you and your team are fixing things that weren't broken. Or put another way, you're breaking things that were fixed. This does not augur well for attracting professionals to your ministry, and it's not surprising that we haven't heard anything of these positions being filled. What will likely happen is that these positions will eventually be filled with political hacks, and the performance of the entities will deteriorate. I recommend that the administration concentrate on just a few things, continuing what has worked across administrations. The first track is crime control. It is well documented that, other things being equal, a better equipped and more modern professional police force will make a positive difference in the fight against crime. The second track to focus on is crime prevention. More attention and resources must be invested in attacking the root causes of crime through carefully designed crime prevention measures. Measures such as the Citizen Security and Justice Program and the Unite for Change initiative. If we can find the additional billions promised last year to pump into these two parallel tracks of crime control and crime prevention, then we will return to the path of a safer and more secure Jamaica. Thank you.
Well done. Properly. I hope Bobby learned something from this.
Speaker, what I speak on.
Is your uncle tell you if he says something?
When I speak, I'm going to come in a minute. Yeah?
Okay. Excellent. Desmond, I see you get up to come. know where you don't bother to hit from. We know where you come from. That's from the ball out.
They said there's my across the floor after this.
Am I going to speak today? Am I talking today?
Eh? You serious? What color?
Mr. Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Central Kingston will now make his contribution.
Before you speak, Mr. Tweed, may I advise the House that, as a matter of courtesy, and the Minister of Finance has never missed the point in giving the Speaker a copy of your presentation. It gives me the opportunity to know where you are when you're finished in overtime. Sometimes you're in conclusion and may need a few points. I'm going to ask, since I have to do it publicly, members, the courtesy to the Speaker is you make a presentation of a copy of your presentation to him. Mr. Tweed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and the orderly will hand you a copy of my presentation. I extend to you, sir, the courtesies on behalf of your office and all of the staff and colleagues of the House of Parliament for their kindnesses over the year. And I pay tribute to the constituency of Central Kingston for their forbearance and loyalty. The title of this presentation is Doing It Right the First Time. Mr. Speaker, effective education, training, and appropriate values are the only foundations of advancement for the people of Central Kingston and the majority underclass of Jamaica's population. That is common cause among all of us. That 2/3 of our school leavers cannot matriculate to the tertiary sector or skilled work and are often gravely socially inept is evidence of the systemic incapacity of the current educational order to create the base for social peace, individual progress, and national progress as well. Current policy and practice reflecting more outdated assumptions about social order and the purposes of education than our political preferences of either side cannot take us where we need to go. Government is spending more money and effort on remediating embedded inadequacies than on doing it right the first time. Early childhood education remains the Cinderella of the education system. If you add up everything up to grade 4, it is approximately $6 billion spent on this arena out of a $95 billion budget. The figures speak for themselves. We are spending too much money ineffectually because we are afraid to change the system fundamentally. The education pyramid, which is upside down, needs to be turned right side up, with more attention being paid at the base, where lifetime habits are formed and personalities developed. We must do it right the first time. The consequence will be to minimize the billions we have to outlay, largely ineffectually, to correct the deficiency of literacy, numeracy, and social ethics later on. Mr. Speaker, I contend that the diminution of social capital in Jamaica is the major challenge facing the nation nowadays. Because our families, communities, and schools are not doing it right the first time, fully half of our children enter school unready for education, lacking those personal and social habits born of appropriate values and home training to support effective teaching and learning. Mr. Speaker, The nation's social crisis is the parent of our economic woes. Mr. Speaker, more than a third of our children lack any strong relationship with their fathers. Women, mothers, nearly 20% of them before reaching maturity themselves, are cruelly, unfairly burdened with the responsibility of raising the young, mostly without support, emotional or financial. This is the greatest example of gender-based violence I can think of. Yet we seldom talk about it here in this chamber, nor do we encourage the change in adult behavior which causes this outrage. Will this Parliament, for the cause of humanity and national security, affirm the precept that, redressing history, Jamaican men and women must not have children unless they have a commitment to together raise those children to maturity? Do we have the courage to admit to ourselves and act accordingly that you cannot build a progressive and prosperous society without strong family structures?
True.
We blight our children's prospects, you know, Mr. Speaker, and we colt us our collective hopes for sustained, wholesome growth when we don't do right by them the first time. When they turn up at school lacking habits of respect, poor nutritional practices, exposed to pornography and violence at home, on the street, and through the media. Absenteeism from school is winked at in Jamaica nowadays, but it is a terrible tragedy to miss even a day of school. Over 1/5 of our students are absent daily, even as poverty increases. We must immediately invoke the provisions of the Education Code, long ignored, to develop the whole of Jamaica as a compulsory attendance zone. And we must assign more of our surplus teachers who are already on the establishment to serve as social workers to ensure compliance. The transportation subsidy for needy students, started in 2014 with $80 million, needs to be doubled and given not to parents, but to schools. Parents mix up the money. Schools know who is to get it and who needs it when. Speaker, we are frustrating our teachers by the inadequate support we as parents are offering. Nationally, I wonder if you know, sir, less than half of all parents are active in parent-teachers associations. 4 out of 10 students seldom, if ever, complete homework assignments. Many teachers are having to spend nearly half of their teaching time establishing and maintaining order. Increasing the allocation for school feeding is a good move, although, given inflation and more poor children, it only means another $12 per day per student. Easily 30% of our children at all levels come to school hungry every day. Breakfast for everybody who needs it must become a national priority. Hunger and travel distance from school are 2 main contributors to absenteeism. Mr. Speaker, fewer of our children than ever before now attend Sabbath or Sunday school to learn manners and right behavior. There is more comparative religion and rote devotions exercised in our schools than strong ethics and morals. So why should they be surprised, sir, when the youth follow the carnival and the dance hall events and copycat the practices of debauchery, just as they see prosperous adults do? Mr. Speaker, there's no intention to make us depressed by chronicling these social problems. The purpose is to shift the parliamentary discourse towards attention to these eminently correctable cultural issues. Instead of us often wasting our time in mutual self-destruction and nourishing the fallacy that making money jingle in people's pockets, as if that were likely, and making election promises that cannot be kept will solve the problem before God comes. To do it right the first time will demand the complete overhaul of the early childhood education system. The transformation of some 1,500 of the nearly 3,000 basic schools into standalone infant schools or infant departments of primary schools must be completed in a maximum of 3 years. It is regrettable that the priority given this process has lagged since the change of administration. The process of certifying basic schools is necessary, but it's entirely insufficient. The mincing around early childhood education must stop. Mr. Speaker, may I give you a quote from an eminent Jamaican to reinforce my point. Writing on October the 9th, 2016 in the Gleaner, this writer said, "This is where the real problem begins." He was talking about the rash of crime and the proliferation of murders. He says the graduating 30% can more or less take care of themselves, but the 70%, by and large, cannot. He's talking about school leavers. That 70% is not going to fade away. The 70% is not going to be able to migrate, nor are they going to die. So how do they live off the crumbs that fall from the table? Things have changed since the 1970s. More and more boys and young men who don't want crumbs are taking away tables full of food, and if you try to stop them, they will fight to death, your death or theirs. They have been neglected too long, and because they don't see a way out, they consider themselves in desperation done, dead already. It may be said that it is already too late to find a way out to bring early childhood education seriously in the system, to begin a real transformation. It will cost too much, will be the response. But if we think that would be costly, we should check the cost if it is not done. That quotation comes from the Right Honourable Edward Siaga. Every early childhood institution, not just a quarter of them, Mr. Speaker, every early childhood institution, not just a quarter of them, must have a teacher trained and motivated to instill and model values of human dignity, self-respect, regard for others, especially the opposite sex, racial pride, gentleness, and compassion. Tell them the stories in the basic schools about showing the values of truth and trust. These are more important than memorizing the alphabet, the books of the Bible, and the times tables. Mr. Speaker, the time to enrich the early childhood curriculum is now. There is no school in Jamaica which is not owned or sponsored by a church or is not in proximity of several churches. Let us resurrect that undervalued partnership between church and state so that children whose home life may be weak can hear from mentors from the church the significance of community, of nation and its symbols, and learn of the premium and the joy of faithfulness in human relationships. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share briefly with this Honourable House a pilot project that I'm pioneering in my constituency of Central Kingston. I've just started a program called the Constituency Values and Attitudes Promotion Program, or CVAP for short. We've had a first meeting with the teachers from early childhood institutions, primary schools, and high schools. The plan is for early childhood institutions to organize a values and attitudes training program for all new parents with children entering in September. In the primary schools, the plan is for them to organize values and attitudes training programs for parents entering in grade 1, and to baptize their grade 6 students in the values and attitudes training program in the final year to prepare them for high school in September. And at the high school level, to earmark 2 or 3 sessions in each subject area to teach 2 of the values and attitudes topics that are outlined. They have to be incorporated into certain subjects that lend themselves to do so, and I am hoping that we can create more of an impact with our studies of civics and our national pride within that whole context. It is something that is beginning now, Mr. Speaker, and I'm anxious to share with any member of Parliament who has an interest to do just that. Mr. Speaker, most parents are easily attentive to their children's needs at the early childhood level. It is thus the ideal focus for upgrading parenting education. Do the right thing for both parents and the little ones the first time, and the lessons and habits are likely to stick through life. It is to this radical rebalancing of our education content and emphasis to which the philosophy and the praxis of the People's National Party dedicates itself going forward. We say that progress must be for all, not just for some, most times at the expense of the majority. And Mr. Speaker, this issue is far too important to fall victim to any inter-party contest. We are pleased when the present government continues the bold initiatives like reducing the shift system and eradicating the pit toilets in schools, as a particular project of the member from Southwest St. Andrew when she was Prime Minister. But accuracy and respect requires that, however, that it be acknowledged that all the achievements in these, as in so many areas, were prepared, built, and provided for before the change of government. Right now, the traditional high schools and colleges get the products, about 30% of each cohort, of such good early childhood and primary education as there is. So, Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise that they produce generally satisfactory outcomes and that parents seek after places there. The other 70%, whose weak socialization and low GSAT scores reinforce each other, create, with a few heroic exceptions, a virtual underclass of institutions whose outcomes we frantically and expensively try to remediate. Just look at what is happening at Cumberland, Mr. Speaker. But there is a better way, and it's an affordable way. Recalibrate the education budget. Devote 20% to early childhood and special education, Mr. Speaker. Do it right the first time, so that all children are exposed to good teaching and nutritious food, and so develop traits of manners and reasonable behavior, appropriate standards of literacy and numeracy by grade 4, and the crippling problems higher up the educational ladder will be greatly reduced. Mr. Speaker, the obstacle of any government to lead in this correction, this urgent correction of these problems, is not primarily money. Apply zero budgeting principles to public education and training resources, and you will find that about a quarter of the funds could be more effectively spent. It is the unwieldy system of employing people in our schools which enshrines, with very little flexibility, as times and needs change, binds the dedicated and the time servers to the same rigid salary categories, and makes it almost impossible to sanction low productivity. This is the big problem which we must solve together. Mr. Speaker, we on this side commit to show the courage and to exercise the political will to do it right the first time at last. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the member for Western St. Andrew will now make his contribution to sectoral debate.
Mr. Hilton.
Mr. Speaker, I begin this year's contribution to the sectoral debate, my 20th, by acknowledging with tremendous gratitude the voters of Western St. Andrew for electing me as your Member of Parliament for the third consecutive term, and for supporting my 3 councillors to provide the support I need to carry out the work on their behalf. I thank the councillors and my executive members, including my constituency secretary, Mrs. Grace Barrett, who has served in that capacity, Mr. Speaker, for the last 30 years with quiet diligence and admirable loyalty. Mr. Speaker, I must acknowledge the former party and opposition leader, the Most Honourable Portia Simpson Miller, for giving me the opportunity to serve in her cabinet as her Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and more recently as her Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mr. Speaker, I've had the privilege of serving in other cabinets, and it therefore allows me to state that the last Simpson-Miller-led cabinet was arguably the most outstanding, but definitely the most consequential. I offer the view, Mr. Speaker, that history will be kind to our leadership of that cabinet and her role in the rehabilitation of the country's economy, as well as her central role in Jamaica's politics for the last 40-odd years. To Dr. Peter Phillips, I once again say congratulations on your ascension to these high offices and for your own role in the last PNP administration, which together with your many years of quality service to party, government and country, recommends you highly as a Prime Minister in waiting. History, Mr. Speaker, will not fail to acknowledge the central role played by Dr. Phillips in laying a solid foundation for the trajectory of stability and growth now being experienced by the country's economy. Mr. Speaker, to you, Mr. Speaker, I say thanks for choosing not to hear or see everything that goes on in this House from time to time, but for keeping us focused on the important task at hand, which is to keep moving forward the nation's agenda. Last but by no means least, Mr. Speaker, I must specially recognize the wind beneath my wings, my wife Yodit and daughter Nai. If nothing else, Mr. Speaker, their presence here today serves to remind others that we do have families who bear the brunt of our sacrifices as we daily try to balance our public duties with our family responsibilities. Mr. Speaker, my contribution today is entitled A Vision of Growth We Can All Believe in. Mr. Speaker, one writer opined that success is vision realized. I had occasion, Mr. Speaker, to reflect on the meaning of this earlier this month at the groundbreaking ceremony for the JPS 190 megawatt liquefied natural gas, or LNG, fueled power plant in Old Harbour Bay. And I must commend my colleague, the former Energy Minister, Philip Paulwell, as well as Dr. Vincent Lawrence, and the ESET team, and the ESET team for the tremendous work they did in making the event possible. I must also commend JPS, its shareholders and the local financial institutions that have come on board to provide some $120 million of the US $330 million that the project funded needed. This, Mr. Speaker, is a clear sign of their confidence, renewed commitment and demonstration of the capacity of Jamaica's maturing capital market to play a key role in Jamaica's economic development. Mr. Speaker, this statement is true regardless of the political administration in office and is a cumulative effect of confidence-building measures taken across administrations and over a sufficiently long period of time to assure our private sector and investor community of a renewed commitment by the political directorate to pursue sound macroeconomic policies. Mr. Speaker, the other occasion on which I participated in a similar groundbreaking event was for the 120 megawatt bulk plant in Montego Bay, when I served as a Minister of Mining and Energy and sanctioned the building of the plant as a dual fuel use plant to accommodate LNG. The year was 2002, and the prospects for Jamaica getting LNG, Mr. Speaker, seemed remote, and our likely source at the time was Trinidad and Tobago, who subsequently reneged on an agreement to supply LNG to Jamaica. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the vision articulated by me at that time was for Jamaica to become the LNG hub for the Caribbean and the Americas. It seemed to some at the time, Mr. Speaker, to be an improbable and a pipe dream, as a logistic hub appeared to others in more recent times. It has been a long road, Mr. Speaker, but success is indeed vision realized. However, Mr. Speaker, what had me not just reflecting, but connecting the vision of the past, the success of the present, and the more than hopeful prospects for the future, is the use of LNG, not just for efficient electricity generation, but to support industrial development as well. And, Mr. Speaker, what really had me swelling with pride as a Jamaican is the certain knowledge that this industrial development, if focused correctly, could be truly economically and socially transformational and in an inclusive way, truly to the benefit of all our people and not just a few. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of industrial uses for LNG, but if we were to focus on even one, the potential impact could be far-reaching. Mr. Speaker, I'm referring to the cryogenic or cold storage capabilities that result from LNG being shipped at the very cold temperature of minus 112 degrees centigrade. Mr. Speaker, just take farming. Still a major source of employment, food security, pride and dignity for many of our people. Our farmers endure a lot. They have all heard, and we have all heard, the horror stories around Plea last night. However, our farmers suffer even more from post-harvest losses due to the lack of adequate cold storage facilities in Jamaica than they do from Plea last night. LNG, Mr. Speaker, can fundamentally change this through the development of cold chain facilities that keep agricultural produce cool from the cold temperatures of LNG rather than from direct and more expensively generated electricity as is currently being done. Consider as well, Mr. Speaker, the longer shelf life of our agricultural produce, especially those shipped across borders to distant markets to earn foreign exchange for the farmers and the country. LNG, Mr. Speaker, can alter the loss-making story for many of our farmers into a positive story and decisively in their favor. Let us also take a look at pharmaceutical, Mr. Speaker. A major cost of their manufacturing, storage and distribution is simply keeping them cool in order to maintain their efficacy as a drug. With the introduction of LNG to Jamaica, we now have the fundamentals to effectively lower pharmaceutical costs through either manufacturing and or cold storage in Jamaica for regional and global distribution. In this scenario, Mr. Speaker, not only will manufacturers benefit from lower costs, but this would be a welcome benefit to our overburdened health sector. Mr. Speaker, LNG is referred to as a miracle fuel because of its low carbon footprint. It's cheaper than fuel oil costs, and its multiple uses. Another such use is as transport fuel, as explained by the Minister of Transport and Mining in his presentation to this Honourable House last week, when he announced the start of a pilot project for LNG use in JUTC buses. But significantly, Mr. Speaker, LNG is also fuel for the latest generation of cargo and passenger ships being built to traverse the Panama Canal or to cruise the Caribbean Sea. Mr. Speaker, colleague members of Parliament, it should be clear from my presentation so far that the realization of the vision for the introduction of LNG in Jamaica and its expansion will lead to the speedy realization of the LNG hub in Jamaica and further serve as a catalyst for the realization of Jamaica becoming the logistics hub of the region. Mr. Speaker, I have every reason to believe that the investors in the LNG project here in Jamaica, Fortress Energy, embrace the vision of Jamaica serving as both an LNG hub and a logistics hub, because they, like us, are fully aware of the mutually reinforcing benefits of both hubs. Mr. Speaker, I should be equally clear, or what should be equally clear, is that the two game-changing visions and strategies of past administrations, past PNP administrations, have propelled the introduction of LNG into our energy mix and catalyzed the establishment of the Global Logistics Hub as a fourth node in the global trading system, ensuring sustained economic growth and jobs for Jamaica now and well into the future. Mr. Speaker, the formula for sustained economic growth is greatly simplified and more accessible with the introduction and expansion of LNG and the push to establish Jamaica as a global logistics hub. The formula, Mr. Speaker, is simply this: macroeconomic stability, plus business and entrepreneurship reforms, plus introduction of LNG, plus the logistics hub, plus education and training, yes, with values and attitudes, plus crime reduction, equals sustained economic growth with jobs. Mr. Speaker, the use of LNG as both a source of cheaper and cleaner energy, as well as to drive expansion of industrial output and to increase commerce, while serving as a magnet to attract more cargo and passenger carrying vessels to the ports of Kingston and Montego Bay, will be catalytic, making Jamaica's quest to become the fourth node in the global supply chain and the logistics hub for this hemisphere unstoppable. Unstoppable, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you will appreciate that we in the opposition are not in the least surprised at the modest but significant growth being experienced in the Jamaican economy. After all, Mr. Speaker, we own the formula. If anything, Mr. Speaker, we are concerned that the momentum of economic growth and job creation started under the previous PNP administration could be halted or worse, reversed. It is clear, Mr. Speaker, that these successes did not just sprout out of the ground like Jack and the Beanstalk from magic beans sown by this JLP administration. It is simply impossible for such economic momentum to have gathered force in a year or less, unless there was a great catalyst behind it. Mr. Speaker, I spelled out the formula for all Jamaica to see and understand, and it is worth repeating. Macroeconomic stability, plus business and entrepreneurship reforms, plus introduction of LNG, plus the logistics hub, plus education and training with values and attitudes, and crime reduction equals sustained economic growth with jobs. Mr. Speaker, the veil of secrecy has been lifted and the mystery solved. In other words, Mr. Speaker, The previous PNP administration created the vision, laid the roadmap, developed the strategies, created the instruments, charted the course, and drove the momentum of the economic recovery being witnessed now. All this administration has to do, Mr. Speaker, is follow the blueprint. Just to remind Mr. Speaker, when we left office in February 2016, the following obtained: Doing Business Index, competitiveness indices, the logistics performance and investments were all the way up, all the way up. Forbes magazine had voted Jamaica the best place in the Caribbean to do business for 2 consecutive years running. Jamaica was among the top 10 performing economies in the world, according to the 2016 World Bank's Doing Business report. Mr. Speaker, the statistics are unassailable. We are concerned, Mr. Speaker, primarily with the taxation measures imposed by the administration, including the property tax measures that have been draconian and have been disabling for middle-income persons and the working poor. The question is, Mr. Speaker, if through carelessness this administration allows the proverbial Humpty Dumpty, which is the macroeconomic stability, to fall, can it be put back together again under this administration? We are concerned that the foundations of macroeconomic stability laid by the previous administration were built on the great sacrifices made by the Jamaican people will be eroded. Mr. Speaker, we are concerned as well that the pace of business environment reforms has slowed to a crawl. As Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, I facilitated private sector investors putting concrete into the ground by significantly improving the ease and speed of doing business, as recorded by our significant improvement in the international indices to which I previously referred. Mr. Speaker, the soft infrastructure, while not headline-grabbing, were and remain of critical importance to attracting investments, both local and foreign. Getting concrete into the ground and putting our people to work. Again, Mr. Speaker, the plan was laid, the work was started. All this administration has to do is follow the blueprint. The failure of this administration, Mr. Speaker, to maintain pace with the reforms is perhaps nowhere more evident than in the emerging cannabis industry. We are waiting investments in medical marijuana has passed the point of frustration and are approaching anger. The failure, Mr. Speaker, to move forward within the set time frame is inexplicable because all this administration has to do is follow the blueprint. And, Mr. Speaker, we are concerned that not enough attention is being paid to the social and economic inclusion of the people in the economic policies of this current administration. Mr. Speaker, I again make a special appeal on behalf of the MSME sector as it relates to the possible use of unclaimed funds in dormant accounts in the banks. Some $48 billion, Mr. Speaker, at last count. $48 billion. It's a lot of money. Mr. Speaker, it is now generally accepted that the MSME sector is the engine of economic growth with jobs. Yet of the share of the increased lending to the private sector by the banks, the amount provided to the MSME sector is a paltry 6%. 6%. This is not good enough, Mr. Speaker, because beyond risk assessment and capacity building lies the guardian knot of appropriate financing. As I pointed out in a well-researched document submitted to the previous cabinet and made available to the banks, many developed countries have decided to fund their MSME sector from the unclaimed funds in dormant accounts. There is urgency, Mr. Speaker, in us following suit. Again, Mr. Speaker, The plan was laid out. All this administration has to do is to follow the blueprint. But, Mr. Speaker, what a difference a year makes. Last year, Mr. Speaker, it was less than clear what the new JLP administration's true posture towards the logistic hub would be. After all, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the Prime Minister's own metaphor, which likened the change of administration to passing of the baton in a relay, other senior members of his team in critical ministries had called the push towards implementing the hub a, quote, pipe dream, and even less charitable, a hoax. This, Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that significant local and foreign investment had already started under the previous administration in Kingston Wharf, CMA-CGM, ISOCON, which is a UK investment in specialized container operations, allowing for the shipment of rums and specialized foods across borders at global standards, among others. But even more important, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that 2 of the 3 hubs sought to participate in the investments for our Port of Kingston divestment. 2 of the 3 existing hubs. My grandmother would say, catch the rake, Mr. Speaker, catch the rake. A year later, Mr. Speaker, the administration's fulsome embrace of the Global Logistics Hub initiative in all its elements gives the assurance to the Jamaican entrepreneur, the foreign investor community, the youngsters in school trying to decide on a career path, and the unattached youth on the corner hoping for a second chance at life, that finally there seems to be a shared vision and strategy towards achieving the goal of Jamaica being a global logistics hub. Finally. Thus, Mr. Speaker, fulfilling both its maritime and aviation potential, given its central geographic position in the Caribbean and midway between the 800 million person market in North America, North, Central and South America. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the administration has not simply fulsomely embraced the Logistic Hub initiative in all its elements. It has restored the initiative to being the centerpiece of the growth agenda, a full vindication of my own vision and articulation. But, Mr. Speaker, this display of a shared vision and strategy could not have come at a better time, given the increasing competition coming from elsewhere in the region and concerns or fears in several quarters, including here in Jamaica, that we may have yet again missed the proverbial boat. So, Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to commend the Prime Minister for his full embrace of the Global Logistics Hub and for staying true to his stated belief that this is a relay race that we must win for Jamaica, land we love. For, Mr. Speaker, it is to the credit of the JLP administration and the immense benefit of the Jamaican people that we now have a shared vision of Jamaica being the global logistics hub and the 4th node in the global trading system. Mr. Speaker, the logistic hub is about Jamaica. More importantly, it is about the Jamaican people. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear that an embrace of the global logistic hub is a rejection of the notion that the hub is a pipe dream or a hoax. A good example of the profound benefits to following the blueprint. I am certain, Mr. Speaker, that the Honourable Prime Minister, the ministers with responsibility for the portfolio in the Economy and Growth Ministry, as well as the Minister of Transport and Mining, together with their advisors, have by now viewed the studies, had the discussion with the experts within and without government, and more importantly, heard from investors and participated in the signing of agreements and the groundbreaking ceremonies to have disabused themselves of any such negative views of the Logistics Hub initiative. But, Mr. Speaker, I must here again compliment the Prime Minister for a very constructive and indeed career-saving move he made. in the removal of the logistics hub and the special economic zones, which is the principal instrument of the hub, from his colleague minister, Mr. Pipe Dream himself, the Minister of Industry, Investment, Commerce and Agriculture. This for his failure to follow the footprint. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that the minister and I were first friends in the PNP, then he became my harshest critic, based no doubt on poor advice. But I should report that he's again my friend, though still not a comrade. On a more serious note, Mr. Speaker, I hope that those ill-advised letters that were written to free zone operators engaged in motor vehicle logistics operations, Minister, at Kingston Wharf and the Spanish Town Free Zone are by now rescinded or withdrawn as being violative of the law, as pronounced by the AG's chamber. I hope they have now been, Attorney General, I hope that they have either been rescinded or withdrawn. These are serious infractions and they should be dealt with. Mr. Speaker, with significant agreement on the broad vision of Jamaica being the hub for both logistics and LNG in the region, coupled with the business environment reforms being undertaken, with the support and cooperation of both the World Bank, IDB, and the IMF, there is much on which government and opposition can agree as it relates to Jamaica becoming the fourth node in the global supply and trading system behind Singapore, Dubai, and Rotterdam. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, there has been broad support for divestment, expansion, and dredging of the Port of Kingston by the global shipping organization CMA-CGM and its subsidiary Freeport Terminal Limited. The expansion and modernization of Kingston Wharf Limited into a major hub terminal with significant logistics capabilities also has bipartisan support. Further, Mr. Speaker, there is support for private sector investments in the proposed Kingston dry dock operations to be implemented by German and local interests, together with the expansion of bunkering activities by West Indies Petroleum. There is as well major warehouse development activities at Ferry, where the global corporation Nestle is putting its regional distribution headquarters. These, Mr. Speaker, are but some of the major activities which serve to demonstrate the continuing strong investment in the Logistics Hub initiative. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the opposition welcomes the recent announcement by the Transport and Mining Minister relating to the development of Vernon Field into an aircraft repair and maintenance organization, cargo facilities, and carrier service operations, as well as an aviation training institute. Mr. Speaker, the opposition also welcomes the announcement by the Transport and Mining Minister as they relate to the logistics hub and developments regarding the railway, Vernon Field, and Tinsapen. These, of course, Mr. Speaker, are subject to a close examination of the details of these announcements. For example, Mr. Speaker, the opposition views the railway as an essential facility in support of our internal logistics and the success of the Global Logistics Hub initiative. We therefore will be looking closely, Mr. Speaker, to see what provisions will be put in place in the final agreement with the mentioned ERZOG organization to ensure access to this essential facility by potential competitors. And further, Mr. Speaker, to see what regulatory arrangements are proposed to be put in place. For as we know, Mr. Speaker, the devil is always in the details. But, Mr. Speaker, we have major concerns too about the government's handling of aspects of the implementation of the Hub initiative. Mr. Speaker, one such is the view reportedly expressed by the Prime Minister in New York at a public meeting and in response to a question that the Goat Island project will not go forward as proposed by the investor China Harbour Engineering Company, Czech. Notwithstanding the significant investments undertaken by that entity as part of its due diligence exercise and to satisfy the great public outcry by environmentalist concerns.
Minister,
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the member's time be extended by 5 minutes for him to complete his presentation.
The motion is that the members' time be extended by 5 minutes. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? But Mr. Hilton, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. To date, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has not honoured his word by coming to this Parliament and giving explanation as to the government's position on this matter, and to advise on the role, if any, that Goat Island will play or will be playing in positioning Jamaica as a fourth node in the global trading system, which we all agree on. This off-the-cuff response, Mr. Speaker, cannot suffice as a statement of policy, nor as a substitute for a proper explanation to this Honourable House. Mr. Speaker, we welcome to the Customs Agency a new Commissioner of Customs, who from all needs to be addressed in this House, who from all reports brings with her a wealth of relevant experiences to enable her to accomplish the task of transforming the Customs Agency into a facilitator of trade and commerce, thus aiding the efficient operation of the logistics hub, rather than continuing to be the bureaucracy that it has become, or a mere revenue collection agency. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the opposition is of the view that the reform of the Customs Act is critical to the success of the logistics hub, by it becoming a more accountable agency and more efficient in its facilitation of trade and commerce. We did the work, just follow the blueprint. Of equal significance, Mr. Speaker, is the urgent need to pass legislation to give effect to the Trade Facilitation Treaty, signed in Bali, Indonesia in 2013, ratified by Jamaica in December 2015, and which entered into force in January 2017. The legislation, Mr. Speaker, will allow our local courts to adjudicate on breaches of the treaty rules by customs officials, and hence harmonization of the custom administration of global trade rules. So, Minister, this is very, very critical. Mr. Speaker, these expressions of concern by the opposition should not detract from the fact of a shared vision for Jamaica becoming a global logistics hub. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it allows for greater scrutiny of the work of government by the opposition when there is truly a unity of vision, strategy, and purpose. Nowhere is the benefit of a shared vision better exemplified, Mr. Speaker, than in the area of human resource development to meet the projected needs of the emergent logistics industry. Mr. Speaker, government and opposition demonstrated this unity of purpose and action in the recent passage of legislation to upgrade the high-performing Caribbean Maritime Institute into a top-flight regional and international university to be called the Caribbean Maritime University. The effort, Mr. Speaker, was truly a bipartisan one, which allowed for apparent challenges to be met and overcome swiftly in a demonstration of unity. Both sides, Mr. Speaker, recognize that we have an opportunity to respond to the demands of our young people who have signaled their faith in the only institution of its kind in the region and perhaps the entire hemisphere. Its enrollment has skyrocketed from a mere 200 students in 2007 to over 3,600 students registered in the last academic year and still growing. Mr. Speaker, equally demonstrative of this unity of purpose and action is the announced support by the Minister of Education of a $50 million contribution through our Trust NTA for the development of the Seaview Gardens Workforce College to be located in the industrial heartland of Jamaica off the Spanish Town Road. Mr. Speaker, I announced the project towards the end of the PNP administration in November 2015 as the then Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, after an undertaking given by the then Minister of Education. The project, Mr. Speaker, is aimed at providing entry-level training for mainly, though not exclusively, inner-city youngsters who live in the shadows of the Port of Kingston and can see the increased activities in or around the port, but are at risk of being excluded because they are not equipped with the necessary skills to fulfill the demands of an emergent logistics hub industry springing up around them. Mr. Speaker, the upgrade of the Caribbean Maritime Institute to a degree-granting university makes the Workforce College more critical and urgent. Mr. Speaker, the Workforce College aims at training mainly young and unattached men and women with the requisite level of qualification to be certified using the apprenticeship scheme and other methods of training by heart to make them work ready. Although located in the Seaview Gardens community in Western St. Andrew, the training institution will provide training for youngsters drawn primarily from the inner city communities of West Central St. Andrew, East Central St. Andrew, Southwest St. Andrew, and Western St. Andrew. Mr. Speaker, one remarkable feature of this institution is the involvement of other stakeholders, including the business interests, who have already identified their training needs in the area of logistics and related fields. On behalf of the stakeholder grouping, I take this opportunity to thank the government for taking the baton and running with it. Mr. Speaker, the logistic hub is no pipe dream. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, a shared vision of Jamaica as both LNG hub and logistic hub for the region and the hemisphere is a powerful recipe for success and a potent antidote to the anemic growth experienced by the Jamaican economy over the last 40 years. But, Mr. Speaker, these are only two of the components of the growth formula set out in this presentation. If any component of the formula is missing or poorly implemented, Mr. Speaker, positive growth in the economy will be affected and undermined. That is why we remain concerned about the maintaining macroeconomic stability of the island, maintaining the pace of business environment reforms. We are especially concerned that appropriate source of financing be made available to the MSME sector. We are concerned, too, that the special economic zone regulations are taking far too long to be promulgated, thus putting at risk much needed investments. We are concerned, too, Mr. Speaker, that the long-promised master plan and industry analysis are taking far too long to be completed. The customs reform, including legislation to implement the Bali Agreement on trade facilitation, now that the agreement has entered into force, must quickly be completed. Cannabis license for medical marijuana and hemp, including their export, must be speeded up. We need more information on the Leachin-led enterprise team proposed to implement the Logistic Hub initiative. It is to this end, Mr. Speaker, we urge administration to step up the progress if it wants to maintain Jamaica's ease of doing business ranking, if it wants to improve in the competitiveness index, to step up the progress if it wants to keep the growth momentum in the economy going, and if it wants to achieve its promised 5% growth in 4 years. Step up the progress if it wants to achieve the shared vision of growth that all Jamaicans can believe in. Mr. Speaker, the vision is clear, the roadmap set, the compass points to true north. It is the only way we are going to sustain economic growth with jobs. Mr. Speaker, the two great visions of the PNP administrations will lead to real prosperity, one that we all can experience and believe in. So, Prime Minister, step up the progress so that Jamaican people may yet see a prosperity that we can believe in. Jamaica, Mr. Speaker, is now closer than ever, but we must stay the course. Mr. Speaker, success is indeed vision realized.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business for the day. No, I move first for the suspension of the debate until tomorrow.
The motion is that the debate be suspended until tomorrow. Those in favor? Those against? As have it.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business for the day, so I ask for the House be adjourned until tomorrow, 2 p.m.
The motion is that this House be adjourned until tomorrow at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? As have it. This Honourable House now stands adjourned until tomorrow. And may I have to ask that the gallery respect the mace going to the door, and that members do not carry on discussion and start to walk out before the mace goes to the door. I should not be asking this. Again, this House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Jamaica.
Miracle Revival Hour is on PBC Jamaica, this and every Sunday at 7 a.m. with a repeat at 8:30 p.m. Come for the worship, stay for the word. That's Miracle Revival Hour, Sunday at 7 a.m. with a repeat at 8:30 p.m.
Do you notice that every time God gives you a victory, another battle comes up?